When you went in the service, you got it rolling?
Mm-hmm.
When you went in service, where did you enlist at? At Highland Home?
Yeah, in Luverne.
Luverne?
Draft board.
Okay.
There's a difference.
And when they drafted you, what did they do at that time?
When they drafted me and the boys around there, we went to Fort McClellan at Anniston.
In Anniston?
That's where I took my physical and was sworn in.
Okay. And you did your basic there?
No, I come back home for 6 days, and then when they called me up about 7 days, I went to Fort McPherson, Georgia.
Okay, at Fort Macus.
And on February the 14th, they called us out, and I didn't know which way we was going. There was snow all over the ground, but
You remember what date that was?
yeah, the 14th of February.
Of 44.
Yeah, of 44.
That was a year and 2 months after I was born, right there in Fort Mac.
And we went to Camp Edwards, Massachusetts, and that's where I took my basic.
You took your okay. You were at Fort Mac for how long?
About 7 days.
7 days, and then you went up to Massachusetts.
Yeah,
And you took your basic there, and how long were you there?
I was there. Our basic was 6 months.
How did you go up there?
Was it
Troop train.
Troop train?
Train.
Well, I wanted him to say that.
I'm glad. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, so
Because see, people this day and time would think he flew.
Yeah. And
No.
when were you with a large group of people when you were on the troop train?
Yeah.
Just,
I don't know how many cars they were, but there was a lot of them on the train.
So it took you what, about 2 days to get from Atlanta to?
No, it didn't take 2 days. We left Fort Mac one afternoon, and we got up there the next afternoon.
Okay.
You see, we didn't.
Change trains any?
No, no, we was on a straight through
Straight through.
ride.
But you had a lot of stops. It wasn't express, was it?
No, it wasn't express, but it didn't take us all that long.
When you got to Massachusetts, you were there for six months.
I was there for 6 months, and then on August the 18th, I think it was. No, sometime in July, I forget the date. But anyway, we loaded up everything, equipment and everything, and went to Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
That was on her 82nd birthday.
But
I had a good birthday.
But we went to Orlando, Florida, and Christmas Day of '43, we moved out in the field down there and we finished up our radar and light training down there.
Yeah.
And then we moved from there to Fort Camp Stewart, Georgia, in the swamp. And when we finished there, we was there for about, I guess, 2 or 3 months.
How long was your school in Orlando?
Oh, we was in Orlando for about from we left Orlando in May and we got there in July, or in August rather.
Okay, at Orlando.
Yeah,
Okay, so you left Massachusetts in July and got to Orlando, and you stayed in school at Orlando through August.
no, we left Massachusetts on August the 18th and went to Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
And we stayed down there till we left Orlando sometime in May of the next year.
Is that 45?
No, that'd have been 44.
Yeah.
So he enlisted in 42.
Ben.
Well, then you must have enlisted in 1943 rather than 44. If you, let me think. If you enlisted,
War was over in 40.
if you enlisted in February, and you were up in Massachusetts until August, then down to Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were there, say, until May, that would put you May of 45, right? I mean, 44.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means you enlisted then in 43. So because August of 43 until May of 44.
So he was actually there when you were born.
No, that ain't right.
When did you graduate from high school, honey?
May of 43.
And he
No,
enlisted,
42.
And how long was it after you graduated from high school that you were drafted?
I went to the draft board and that fall and registered for the draft.
okay.
And I was called in January the 26th.
Okay, that had to be a 43 then.
26th of 44.
But if you registered in the fall of 42 and they didn't call you for another over a year.
It was about a year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
When were you discharged?
January the 26th of 46.
So
And,
it was
yeah.
43.
I was discharged on the same date that I was sworn in.
Right.
But how many years later?
3 years.
3 years.
So that's
So that was
40.
43 then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you enlisted in 43. That would have been February 43. Put you up in
Massachusetts. Till
Massachusetts until August, then down into Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Then
you go to Disney.
then over to Fort McPherson. In May of 44, was it?
Hmm. Oh. In other words, when I went to Orlando,
Yeah.
and when we left Orlando, see, there's some of them places we didn't stay but 2 or 3 months
Yeah.
at the time.
Uh-huh.
In other words, when we left Orlando, Florida, we went to Camp Stewart, Georgia.
Camp Stewart. Thank you. Okay.
And then when we left there, we went to Port of Embarkation in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay. When were you at Fort McPherson?
Fort McPherson, that's where I first went in. You see, I was
Okay.
sworn in
In Laverne.
I was sworn in at Fort McClellan.
Okay, Fort McClellan. All right. Near Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when I come back home, and when they called me on the 7th of February, I went to Fort Mac.
Okay, I follow.
Went to Fort Mac.
I
From
got you.
Fort Mac.
Fort
I
McClellan,
stayed there
yeah.
7 days, and I left Fort Mac
And went to
and went to
Massachusetts.
Camp Massachusetts.
Gotcha. Remember the name of that camp?
Camp Edwards.
Camp Edwards.
Camp Edwards.
And from there
And from there,
down to
we come back to Orlando, Florida.
okay.
And we left Orlando and went to Camp Stewart,
Stewart.
Georgia.
Okay.
We left, we took hand grenade training and machine gun training, rifle training, and all that stuff there for about, I think it was about 2 months, maybe 3, I don't know. And then we went to, we went back to Boston, Massachusetts, to Port of Embarkation.
Okay.
And then that was on D-Day was on June the 6th.
Yeah. That's when you were there.
And they canceled our shipment
Okay.
overseas. Well, we went back to Camp Edwards,
Yeah.
and we went back to Camp Edwards, and they give us all, the whole outfit, a 16-day leave.
Yeah.
And I was got off of the bus at home down there on the morning that the troops landed on D-Day.
Get off the bus down at Highland Home.
No,
Laverne?
down there, that road turns to go down to Daddy and them.
Yes.
town.
Yeah.
I got off of the bus there.
On the 6th of June, 44. How about that? How about that?
And then when my leave was over, we all went back to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And from there, we didn't stay long. That was in June that we took the leave. That was getting on close to the end of June when we all got back. And but we still had an APO number.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't
You couldn't divulge the
couldn't talk to
address.
nobody.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't even tell Mom and Daddy where I was going when I was at home.
Yeah.
And we got ready to go, and on the sixth, on the fifth day of July, we took 100 Jeeps to Boston to send overseas,
Yeah.
and we come back out to a little old town named Mattapan and stopped and eating lunch. Except I wasn't there. Some of us didn't want nothing to eat. We was sitting out there. There's a guy come by in a Jeep, and he says, "Any of y'all want to ride with me back to the base, so you won't have to wait for that 2.5?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, I'll go." And just before we got down in the Buzzards Bay to cross the canal,
Yeah.
well, that crazy fool turned around in the street and turned that Jeep over. And then I stayed in the hospital from the 11th day of July until I sent word from my platoon commander to come up there
And get you.
and get me out of there, because I didn't want to go to Fort Hood, Texas. And that's where I would have went.
Yeah.
I'd have went to Fort Hood, Texas in the infantry. And I didn't want no more basic training.
Yeah. You done thrown enough hand grenades, right?
Yeah. And but anyway, in 3 days after he got me out of there, well, that is when we went to port of embarkation.
While you
Back
were,
up a
yeah,
minute.
when you were in the hospital.
Where were you in the Jeep? Where were you
sitting?
I was sitting in between the two front seats.
Okay.
That's
what
in the
happened
middle.
when it turned over?
Yeah.
This one?
And were you the only one hurt?
No, there was two Navy guys sitting on the toolbox in the back. Cause back then, when you sent a vehicle overseas, it had a toolbox with every tool you needed in that vehicle, and they were sitting on that. And when that Jeep turned over, it went up in the air and flipped, and it threw them guys out. And I was wedged between the seats about that wide, you know.
Yeah.
And that Jeep come down on top of my head.
And tore your eye out. Just about.
Yeah, busted my skull open.
And
All of this part of my head was pulled over to this side, tore open from here.
Yeah.
It tore from here to right there. You can still see the scar, and it just pulled all that over. Well, the boy that me and him went out together all the time, he didn't even know me when he helped pick me up and put me in the ambulance.
Huh. Yeah.
What happened to everybody else in the vehicle?
Those two sailors that were sitting back there, what happened to them?
Well, they got to go to the hospital too.
For
And
a free ride, eh?
And the driver was in worse shape than me. They threw him out. I was the only one left. And when you come up top of this hill, and Buzzards Bay was all the way down to the edge of the town, was at the canal. And it was rough slag. And when that Jeep turned over, it skid 75 feet down that hill.
And you were the only one in it. You'd thrown the others out?
Yeah, I was the only one in it.
No, he was under it.
He
I was
well,
under it.
Under it, yeah.
But anyway,
What date was that?
that was on the 11th day of July
The 40.
44.
of 44. Yeah,
And then you got out of the hospital when?
got out of the hospital on the, let's see, I stayed in the hospital for 22 days. I
Been
got out on the,
been early August, real early.
I got out sometime in,
It was around the 3rd of August, sometime around there. If you stayed in there for 22 days.
yeah, it was sometime in August.
Okay.
But anyway,
How bad were you hurt besides your eye?
I was all messed up.
You had broken ribs, didn't you?
Yeah.
And when
3
they-
broken ribs.
3 broken ribs, and when did they untape those?
Well, they untaped them about
3 years ago?
4 or 5 days before I got out of the hospital. And they had 5-inch tape.
After he all
I mean, what I'm talking about, it was stuck to the hide
Yeah.
all around me. And they was I had a corporal wax that was assigned to me to take care, and the only way Mom and Daddy knew that I was in the hospital was I got her to write them a letter about 2 days before I got out of the hospital. That's the Red Cross didn't let her know nothing.
Yeah.
And when I got out and got back to the barracks,
Well, that was before, after they took your tape off, is when you got back to the barracks.
oh yeah, took the tape off.
Well, how did
And
they take that tape off?
And that lieutenant nurse was in charge of it. She said, Mr. Owens says, come over here and stand up in front of me. And she got to fooling with that tape, and the next thing I knew, she had got a hold of that tape in her hand and spun me around, and it felt like she was bringing the hide off.
Spun you around like
Man,
a top,
I'm
huh?
telling you, that hurt. That hurt.
Didn't it take the skin off?
No, it was just with that tape on there, it was red and raw, just like you to skin a rabbit. Well, that's the way my arms looked. All of my them arms, you couldn't see a piece of skin on them nowhere. And whenever they got all healed up, that's when all them scars come out. And then when we got on the ship to go to Europe, we got to the port on the dock, and we was all lined up there like we was going to an officer's get out or something like that, you know. And here they come around, the Red Cross, couple of Red Cross women. They give us a hard donut and a cup of coffee in a little old paper cup. And that's why I ain't got no use for the Red Cross now. And they didn't even give us that when we was in France. Shoot.
Alright, you got your donut and your coffee.
Got your donut and coffee.
And the next donut and coffee I got, I had to pay a nickel for the donut and a dime for the cup of coffee.
Yeah, that was right.
And they wouldn't even give us a cigarette.
Didn't need one.
I might not have needed it, but when you was in a position I was in, and all the rest of us guys over there,
Well, when did you leave?
when did we leave France?
In Fort
The port.
The port? We left whenever we got on the boat,
So it's just-
pulled out.
okay.
I don't know exactly the time.
Yeah. It just loaded up and moved on. And it took you what, about a week to cross?
What was the
13 days.
13 days to cross.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all had to watch out for the subs and everything, so yeah, a lot of zigzagging.
We had 40,000 troops in that convoy, and the troop ship was in the center,
Yeah.
and there was 100 ships in that convoy, and there's a sub. I guess we was out about 3 or 4 days, and there was a German submarine followed us for about 4 days, and he couldn't
Couldn't get in.
to it. And so they finally give up. But I thought all of Germany had done fell on that convoy. One morning they was test firing them guns.
Yeah.
6-inch guns, 16-inch guns, and all that. And man, you thought you was in Berlin.
Wow.
And we went to, from there we got to Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay.
And we got off of the ship there in Glasgow and went to England by train. And I don't know what day that was or how long. It didn't take us long to go to England. I don't even know where we landed at in England.
Mm-hmm.
We got into this little old town, and I didn't like it right away before I ever got off.
What was the matter with it?
He'll tell you.
Cause all of the white women in that town was up there around them trucks with them niggers,
Mm-hmm.
and them niggers told them women and told all of the white people that the reason that they was black, that the Americans give them shots to turn them black so they could be night fighters.
Oh no.
And they did. They did, sure enough. Yes, sir.
They would edit that out.
Why exit the truth?
There you go.
Don't exit.
No. Keep on trucking. Keep on keeping on.
You go find some of them blacks.
Yeah.
And we left there in we stayed there about 13 days, and we went to Liverpool one day. I done forgot what we went up there for. I think we had some equipment. And we went to Liverpool and come back. And the next day we loaded up everything and went back to Liverpool at the port and got on the troop ship to go across the channel. And man, that water was so rough till it was pitiful.
And that was that toward the end of August or September? In September.
Well, let's see. That was sometime in September. And we went from there, we went across the channel to Le Havre, France.
Le Havre,
Le Havre.
Le Havre, Le Havre, France. Le Havre, right there,
It's on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
right there. Okay. And you went.
We went from there. We went from Le Havre.
From La Havre.
Start all over.
say
We
that.
went from Le Havre.
We went from Le Havre to up in the apple orchard and camped out.
And this was further up here. This somewhere was it?
No, that
From Le
where
Havre.
we had to pitch tents after we got out at Le Havre. We got off of the boat and went on them
Barges.
barge things,
Landing craft.
landing craft,
Okay.
and got out and pitched tents. And that is where we went up to Liege, Belgium.
Okay. Here's Liege. Right. Let's see. I thought I had it circled. Yeah, right here. There's Liege.
Mhm.
So you went from Le Havre, then all the way over here to Liege.
Yeah, but I forgot where we picked up that 90 millimeter gun outfit before we got to Liege.
Okay. Did you do any backtracking here, going from Le Havre to Liege?
Well, when we left Liege, they had done stopped the Germans,
Right.
had done turned them back. Well, we come back. We had to come back to Le Havre to get all of our bedding and equipment that we had left there when we left to go to Liege.
Okay. When you left, you went here to Liege. You say that we had already stopped. The Allies had already stopped the Germans. Was that the Battle of the Bulge then?
Yeah, that was the ending of the Battle of the Bulge.
Okay. So
At
you got
Liege.
you got there at Liege just as we turned the tide and got it back,
Right.
pushed it back the other way.
Right, we got there on Christmas Day of 1944.
Okay.
What'd you have for dinner?
Froze sea rations.
Okay. And then you backtracked all the way to Le Havre to get your bedding equipment.
Yeah, when we
Yeah,
left
just-
there, we went back to Le Havre to the beach
Okay.
to.
Now your original training was in Searchlight. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
With the anti-aircraft battalion.
Right.
You know, and y'all pitched somewhere around here to shine lights for the bombers coming back.
Well, we didn't around this up there, but we did that after we come back to Le Havre. We went after we left Le Havre, got our stuff and went back. We set up about 34 miles out of east of Paris
Okay.
at a little air base.
That's right here. Paris is right here.
Yeah. And we stayed there. I don't know, about a month or two.
Okay. And y'all shown the spotlights to help the bombers come back from
Yeah.
their bombing raids. When you were at Liege, what happened at Liege while you were there? You were there for
it
what?
was just a battlefield.
Okay. It was a battlefield, and you were there for about how long? A month? 2 months?
No. We was there we got there about,
You got there on Christmas Day of 44.
no, we got there well, it could have been Christmas Day, but it was night when we got there, Christmas Eve night, I reckon
Okay.
it was.
And you were there for how long before you left and went back to La Havre?
And we was there, we left, we stayed there that night, Christmas Day, and we left up there on a Tuesday morning, coming back to,
Okay, so you were there just a few days then.
yeah,
Yeah. And while you were there, you were on one bank, one side of the river Meuse that runs through Liège.
yeah.
And something took place on the other bank on a hill right across from there. What happened?
Well, we had one battery that night of 90s to go up across the river and set up there in a field next to a barn. Well, that didn't last long. They had to pull up and move back.
Yeah.
They had to come back down the hill. There was a hill going into that town and one over here coming down in.
Yeah.
And they had to pull back, and they set up those 4 90mm guns coming down that hill and use them for anti-tank guns. And that's where one day them British people looked at, they was crazy. Well, can you imagine a major with a group of men up there fighting them Germans, and they come for tea time, and they come back down the hill standing up on the tank, and some dang Kraut done shot him in the mouth and shot his front teeth out. That bullet went right through his mouth like that. A British major now, and German GIs all over the place. But anyway,
He's
now,
still going to tea anyway, huh?
he still went on the tea, I reckon. But during that time we got up there, them Germans had done wiped out a battalion of combat engineers, and they had captured 2,300 GIs, and they got all their equipment, all their clothes. You'd see a guy up there then. I went across that river up on top of that hill, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and you see a GI walking around there dressed in GI army clothes. You didn't know whether he was German or whether he was American. And they finally got all that cleared up. Me and 2 more guys went up there, and we saw this German soldier running out across the field, and this guy had a .32 caliber carbine, one of,
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah, I know what it looks like.
And he shot him. He kept running, and he shot him again. He kept running. He shot him again, and he kept running. And there was a guy there that had a BAR, Browning automatic. I mean, he's on a tripod.
Yeah.
And he picked that thing up and put it up to his shoulder and shot him and hit him right in the back there. And he shot all of his head and arms and shoulders slam off. It just blowed him to pieces like that.
Wow.
He stopped then.
You reckon?
He could do that bus stop. But I'm gonna tell you, folks, it was so cold till up there that the gun that I found up there, the pistol that I found up there, was laying right here, and about 10 feet over from it was a dead German. And whenever it was so cold now, whenever he hit the ground, he fell forward, and one leg was out straight and one leg was up in the air, bent like that at the knee. And he had on a pair of brand new boots, leather boots, up to the knees. I was gonna get me a pair of boots, and his you couldn't straighten that leg out. He froze just like that, just like if you'd have put him in
A bed of
blast freeze.
yeah.
But that's how cold it was.
You got it. Is that the area where you got that 9mm?
Yeah.
Was it that you? And
Right there on top of the hill where they surrendered, cause they had a whole pile of brand new German rifles that they took and hit them over a tree, against a tree, and
Yeah.
broke the stock. You know,
Yes.
and they was one British guy,
Who broke them, the Allies or the Germans?
the Germans,
Okay.
and they was a British guy up there, and they had this what they used for a foxhole, and they had bales of hay stacked up about this high around that, and he said we come up here yesterday, and they found 13 of them 9mm guns under them bales of hay, but them was new guns they had.
yeah.
And the one that I got was made before the war.
Okay.
Cause them that they found under there was rough, you know, the
Yeah.
steel in them was rough.
Yeah.
And then,
So the one you got it was a used one.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Cause I liked it better than I did one of them others.
I got you.
And when we left there on Tuesday, we went down to, when we got back and picked up our stuff at La Havre, we went back up to Paris at that little old airport.
Airport. Yeah.
Yeah.
That airfield out there.
And we used the Germans' housing there, cause they had underground housing.
They had built it from their occupation there in Paris. Yeah.
Yeah, they had, everything was underground, even to the kitchen and everything.
Huh.
And we didn't have to worry about getting potatoes, cause the Germans had about 100 acres around them there that they had planted potatoes,
Uh-huh.
and they was just all out there in the field. You go out there and get many potatoes as you want, dig them up. When we left there, we went to when we left there.
Wasn't there, didn't you tell me a story one time about a close call with a plane at that airport?
When somebody
Somebody
Blew
had
a
come back
can
from
or
a
something.
bombing run?
Yeah, I was trying to think.
Somebody one
That
time
that
blew a
must have
can
been
over.
that must have been that airport No, it wasn't. It was another one.
Where were you when some idiot built a fire, lit a fire?
Oh, that was when we was going into Liege, Belgium.
Okay.
And this,
'Cause which airport was it that when the bombers came back from the bombing run, and you were at the end of the runway or something, right on top of it?
that might have been that airport there in Paris. I don't know. I done forgot now.
What happened with that? What was that about?
Well, that was in the winter time. Snow all on the ground, and we had our kitchen set up in the searchlight trailer, and we had just got through eating supper, and went in the tent and sat down, and all of a sudden we heard this plane. And then guns started shooting, and right out from our tent was the hull of a B-17, and there's snow on the ground. You could see how to shoot rabbits out there. It was so light, and that plane come over there strafing that old bummed out bomber, B-17, and he come right over our kitchen, and he strafed that searchlight trailer, and them machine guns they had on them plane, they wasn't about like our 30s. And it split that searchlight cover on that thing just like you'd have took scissors and cut it. And we had just got out of there and went to the tent about 4 from here to that dryer. From
And that was a German fighter?
yeah,
Did
strafing.
he do it? How many times did
He didn't do it but one time. He got out of there fast, and one time, that was when we was there, I guess, at that base, and we had a radar outfit set up out at the edge of the base in the field somewhere, and one of those German dive bomber strafers come over and was strafing him, and that section had a 50 caliber machine gun about 50 yards out from the tent, and that boy machine gunner was out there on it, and when that thing come by, it would come by pretty level, and that old boy took it down in 41 shots.
Wow.
Shot it right in the, he shot like that was the side of the motor. He just went right down the side of it and come out at the nose. Shot it down. He counted his hulls when he got through with him, and he had 51. Shot him down 51 bullets. Of course, them 50 caliber bullets was enough to bring him down.
Now, was that the first time you were at Paris, or when you went back to Paris from Liege? That happened?
No, that was the last time.
The last time?
Because the only time I went anywhere from Le Havre was Liege, and come back and then we went over here to this base east of Paris.
Okay. And that's when it happened. That's when the strafing happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And two, at that particular time they was running 4 bombing raids a day.
Yeah.
To Germany.
To Germany.
And we'd have, see, my light that I run was set up right by the the runway. Maybe 30, 40 yards from this